Have you ever felt it? You know, that subtle friction when you're speaking English, you're advanced C1 level, you can debate complex stuff, you get the jokes,
Yeah.
you handle professional situations fine, but still, the words, they don't always flow quite like they do in your native language, right?
Yeah.
There's that tiny delay, that feeling you're consciously building the sentence.
Yeah, that C1 plateau. It's incredibly common and really frustrating for a lot of learners. You feel so close, but not quite there.
Exactly. So what we're diving into today is this idea, which is kind of revolutionary, that breaking through isn't just about, cramming more vocab or doing endless grammar drills.
No, it's much deeper than that. It's about actually changing the physical structure of your brain, fundamentally rewiring it.
Wow. Okay. So fluency isn't just something you learn, it's something you physically become. We're talking actual brain changes.
Absolutely. Your brain isn't fixed. It's plastic. It's constantly reorganizing itself based on what you do. That's neuroplasticity. And for language learners, especially advanced ones, that's huge. It means you're not stuck.
And that's really our mission for this deep dive. We're digging into the applied neuroscience, the neuroplasticity side of things.
Yeah, the goal is to show you how to become like a neural architect, how you can actively rewire your brain so English isn't this foreign system you're operating.
But it becomes integrated, part of your own thinking hardware, building a brain that actually thinks in English.
Precisely. But before we get to the how-to, we need to understand the blueprint, right? The basic mechanics of the brain we're working with.
Okay, let's unpack that blueprint. So this idea of neuroplasticity, the source material uses this analogy of a dense forest.
Right. Imagine trying to express a really complex idea in English for the first time. It feels like hacking through thick jungle, doesn't it? Slow, difficult, tons of effort. That's like forging a brand new, very weak neural pathway.
But if you walk that same path again and again,
The path clears. Twigs break. The ground gets packed down. A trail forms. That's neuroplasticity happening. Every single time you listen, speak, read, write in English, you're firing specific neurons.
and the key thing is how they connect. The more you fire those same neurons together, the stronger that connection gets. That's Hebbian theory, right? Neurons that fire together wire together.
Exactly. So that C1 plateau we talked about, often it's because your existing English pathways are like B roads. They work. They get you there most of the time.
Okay, functional, but maybe not high speed.
Right. True fluency, that effortless speed and intuition, that requires upgrading those B roads to multi-lane superhighways. Faster, more efficient, handling more cognitive traffic without jams.
But building those superhighways, that takes serious work.
Oh, absolutely. It demands intense, really focused, and repeated effort. Which brings us to how we practice and understanding the different ways our brain actually learns and remembers.
Yeah, this part's crucial. The idea that we have like two different brain systems for memory.
Exactly. First, you've got the declarative memory system. Think of it as the what system. It's for conscious learning facts, rules, events. Memorizing verb tables, grammar rules, that's mostly declarative. Essential early on.
Essential, yeah. But if you're still relying heavily on that system at C1, that's where the delay comes from. You're consciously looking up the rule or the word in your head before speaking.
It's like trying to drive fast while constantly checking the map. Slows you right down.
So the goal is to shift the load.
Exactly. Shift it over to the second system, the procedural memory system. This is your how-to system. Skills, habits that become automatic. Riding a bike, typing, speaking your native language.
Yeah.
You don't think about the mechanics, you just do it.
You just do it. And that's the dream for English, right? To stop remembering how to speak and just speak.
That's the essence of fluency, migrating those English skills from the effortful declarative system to the automatic procedural one. And crucially, this doesn't happen passively. It needs specific kinds of practice.
And there's another layer to this, right? Something called myelination.
Yes, myelination. So if firing neurons together builds the path, myelination is like paving it, making it super smooth and fast. Myelin is this fatty substance that wraps around the axons, the wires connecting your neurons.
Like insulation on an electrical cable.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
It stops the electrical signal your thought from leaking out. And the result? That signal travels way, way faster, up to 100 times faster and more reliable.
100 times. Wow. So faster thoughts, literally.
Literally. And here's the kicker. Every single time you practice a skill correctly, you trigger cells to add another thin layer of myelin to that specific circuit.
So it's not just about repetition, but correct repetition.
Correct. Focused repetition. It takes hundreds, maybe thousands of these focused reps to build up a really thick, efficient myelin sheath.
Okay, that explains things like the 10,000-hour rule or the idea of deep practice.
Exactly. When you hear a native speaker just rattle off a complex sentence effortlessly, perfect timing, perfect intonation, you're hearing heavily myelinated pathways in action, thoughts traveling at lightning speed.
So our mission as these neural architects is to build that same quality of high-speed insulation for our English circuits.
That's the goal.
Okay, theory is great, but let's get practical. How do we actually do this? What are the core protocols for rewiring?
All right, protocol 1. High-quality, focused input. To build those neural superhighways, your brain needs the best materials. That means input that's rich, complex, authentic. This is key, genuinely engaging for you.
Why engaging? What's the neuroscience there?
It's about dopamine. When you're genuinely interested, emotionally invested, your brain releases dopamine. And dopamine acts like a neurochemical save button. It basically tells your brain, pay attention, this is important, remember this.
So just passively listening to hours of boring stuff, probably not doing much.
Neurologically not very effective, no. Quality absolutely trumps quantity here. Your brain prioritizes what you care about.
Okay, so how do we get this high-quality, focused input?
2 core techniques,
Yeah.
deep listening and deep reading. These are about active, almost forensic examination of the language.
Deep listening, how does that work?
You take a short audio clip, maybe 1 to 3 minutes, something challenging, a podcast snippet, TED Talk, film scene, and you listen multiple times, but each time with a different focus.
Okay, like layers. What's the first pass?
Pass 1, just get the gist, basic comprehension, what's being said.
Simple enough. Pass 2.
Pass 2, listen for the music. Forget the words for a moment. Focus only on the intonation, the rhythm, the stress patterns. Where does the voice go up or down? Where are the pauses? That's the prosody, the heartbeat of the language.
Interesting. Okay, pass 3.
Pass 3, hunt for lexical chunks. Those prefabricated phrases native speakers use all the time. Things like, it turns out that at the end of the day, a sharp decline in. You want to grab those whole blocks.
Got it. Building blocks. And the final pass.
Pass 4, shadowing. This is where the procedural memory gets a real workout. You play the audio and you speak along with it, trying to mimic the sounds, rhythm, intonation as perfectly as you can in real time.
Ooh, that sounds intense. You're forcing your mouth and brain to work together automatically.
Exactly. Bypassing the conscious thought process as much as possible, directly building those motor pathways for fluency.
Okay, that's deep listening. What about deep reading?
Similar idea, but with text. Choose a single page from something high quality and challenging a good novel, a serious journal article.
And you're not just reading for the story.
No, you're dissecting it. How is this sentence structured? Why this word choice? How does the author build suspense? How do the clauses connect? And then the really crucial part, you copy key sentences out by hand.
By hand. Why?
That physical act of writing, the kinesthetic feedback, forces your brain to process every single component. It etches the structure into your memory much more deeply than just reading or even typing.
That makes sense. There's a great example in the source material, right? Dr. Tanaka.
Oh yeah, Dr. Kenji Tanaka, the cardiologist from Tokyo, brilliant researcher. His English was technically perfect, but very flat, monotonous presentations.
So what did he do?
He started deep listening, specifically to articulate scientists being interviewed. Not just what they said, but how they conveyed excitement, how their voices varied. Then he used shadowing to practice that dynamic intonation.
And it worked.
Transformed his presentations. He wasn't just presenting data anymore. He was telling a scientific story, captivating people. It shows how these internal brain changes really do translate outwardly.
Okay, so that's getting the high-quality input. Protocol 1, what's next for strengthening those pathways?
Protocol 2, forced active recall. This is absolutely critical for making memories stick. The neuroscience is crystal clear here. The most powerful learning moment isn't when you're putting information in, it's when you're pulling it out.
So just rereading notes or word lists,
Yeah.
not the best strategy.
It creates what they call the illusion of competence. You think you know it because it's right there, but your brain hasn't done the work to really secure it. The struggle to retrieve information is what strengthens and myelinates the connection. It's the testing effect.
You got to make your brain work for it.
Exactly. Or it won't bother wiring it properly.
So how do we force this active recall?
One great technique is the blurting method. After you read something, a chapter, an article, close it, blank paper. Just blurt out everything you remember. Any order, doesn't matter if it's messy. Then, when you can't remember anymore, open the book and check the things you missed. Those are your weak spots. That's where your neural pathways need reinforcing.
Simple but effective. What else?
The Feynman technique. named after the physicist Richard Feynman. You take a concept you've learned, maybe a complex grammar point, and you try to explain it in the absolute simplest terms, like you're teaching it to a child.
So you can't hide behind jargon. You have to really understand it.
Precisely. Explaining something like the present perfect continuous simply, that's a serious C1 workout.
I can imagine. Any other techniques?
Active recall questioning. So instead of just highlighting a cool phrase in an article, you turn it into a question in the margin.
Like the example, insidious erosion of public trust.
Right. Instead of highlighting, you write, what kind of erosion? Then the next day, you come back to your questions and try to answer them from memory without looking at the text. Forces retrieval.
Okay, makes sense. And there was another real-world example, Isabelle Dubois, the diplomat.
Yes, in Brussels. Dealing with all this dense EU terminology in briefings.
Which would then disappear from her head during actual negotiations.
Exactly. High-pressure situations. So she started doing forced active recall. At the end of each day, she'd literally talk through the key points of the briefings out loud to her empty office, jotting down the terms as she recalled them.
Like a mere rehearsal.
Yeah, a self-imposed retrieval practice. And doing that daily forced her brain to consolidate that vocabulary, move it from that conscious, slow declarative memory to the faster automatic procedural system. So the terms were just there when she needed them in the real talks.
Building those myelinated pathways for instant access.
Very cool. Okay, so we have input, we have recall. What's protocol 3? Protocol 3, contextual immersion and emotional resonance. This is about weaving everything together.
How so?
Well, your brain doesn't store memories like isolated files in a computer. It weaves them into this rich tapestry with sensory details, emotions, context. The hippocampus, for memory formation, is tightly linked to the amygdala, the emotion center.
That explains why you can remember song lyrics from years ago, but forget something you read yesterday. The emotion locks it in.
Exactly. Learning connected to real emotions, social interaction, physical context. It gets encoded way more strongly. So the technique is straightforward, but powerful. Live the language. Don't just study it in a sterile environment.
How do we live it?
One great way is the project-based method. Pick something you're genuinely passionate about, a real project, and commit to doing it entirely in English.
Like what kind of projects?
Could be anything. Start an English blog or YouTube channel about your hobby gardening, vintage films, baking, whatever. Translate a short story you love. Organize an online workshop for people internationally. The key is your passion drives it.
So the language becomes a tool to do something you actually care about.
Precisely. And another approach is the social immersion method. Find your tribe. Our basic human need to belong and communicate in a group is a massive neurological motivator.
So join an online gaming group.
Yeah, like an English-speaking gaming guild where communication has to be fast and functional to succeed. Or become a really active member on a forum or Reddit community about your interests. Or even a local club with international members. Make English the language of connection, of friendship.
There was that great example of Carlos, the designer from Colombia.
Right. His English was technically good, but felt. Textbook, a bit stiff. He loved D&D, so he joined an online group playing in English.
And suddenly English wasn't just study anymore.
No. It was survival, negotiation, persuasion, collaborative storytelling. He had to describe actions under pressure, argue strategy, plead for his character.
High stakes, real emotions involved.
Totally. The thrill, the frustration, it all forged these super strong, context-rich neural connections. His English became dynamic, personal, alive, because it was tied to real experiences and relationships.
That's a powerful transformation. Okay, input, recall, immersion. What's the final protocol?
The final one, often forgotten but absolutely vital, the sleep protocol.
Sleep, really?
Absolutely. Sleep isn't just downtime for your brain. It's prime time for learning consolidation. During deep sleep, non-REM sleep, your brain is incredibly active.
Doing what?
It's replaying the neural firing patterns from your recent learning, strengthening the important connections you made, and actually pruning or weakening the ones that seem less relevant.
So it's like editing and saving the day's work.
Exactly, like the overnight construction crew paving the roads you roughed out during the day. If you skip quality sleep, that consolidation process gets disrupted. The learning doesn't stick as well.
Okay, so how do we leverage sleep for language learning?
Sleep smarter. First, try to schedule your most intense English practice, the deep listening, the forced recall in the afternoon or evening.
Why then?
Because it gives your brain fresh, strong memories to work on consolidating during the sleep that follows soon after.
Makes sense. Anything else?
A quick Pre-sleep mental review. Just before bed, maybe for 2 minutes, mentally run through the key things you learned or practiced in English that day. No notes, just gently prompt your brain. It's like tagging those memories as important for the sleep consolidation process.
Like setting the agenda for the night shift.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And the most crucial point, protect your sleep. Seriously. Consistent, high-quality sleep, usually 7 to 9 hours for adults, is non-negotiable. It's one of your most powerful learning tools. Treat it like one.
Right. Okay, so we've got the protocols: input, recall, immersion, sleep. Now, you mentioned a neurohacker's toolkit, resources to help this process.
Yeah, exactly. Consuming the right kind of content can really accelerate things, especially content that reinforces these learning principles itself.
So book recommendations first.
Definitely. First, The Brain That Changes Itself by Norman Doidge. It's full of amazing, true stories about neuroplasticity in action. Reading it builds this deep belief that change is possible. Plus, the vocabulary itself is great C1 practice.
Okay, foundational belief building. What else?
The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. He explores talent hotbeds and really breaks down deep practice and how it physically builds myelin. Understanding the why behind techniques like shadowing makes them much more powerful.
Got it. The science of practice.
And then Moonwalking with Einstein by Joshua Foer. It's about memory techniques like the Memory Palace. Really entertaining, but also practical for C1 learners. You can use these techniques to remember complex ideas or frameworks, not just words, turning abstract stuff into vivid mental images.
Okay, useful tools. What about things to watch?
Well, the film Limitless, it's sci-fi, obviously, but it's a great metaphor for what optimized neural pathways feel like. Effortless access to information, connecting ideas. It's quite motivating, actually.
A bit of inspiration.
Yeah. And then, much more grounded, the documentary My Beautiful Broken Brain. It follows a woman recovering language after a stroke. It's intense, but incredible proof of the brain's ability to rewire. Hugely inspiring.
Real-world neuroplasticity.
Undeniable proof. And finally, high-quality YouTube channels. People like Andrew Huberman, neuroscientists explaining learning, focus, sleep.
So you learn about learning while practicing your English listening skills.
Exactly. It's a fantastic meta-learning loop. Double benefit.
Okay, great toolkit. So we've got the protocols, the tools. How do we make sure this all leads to true automaticity, making it stick, making it fast?
Right. 2 key concepts here for accelerating progress. First is interleaving.
Interleaving. What's that?
It's the opposite of practicing in blocks. You know, like doing 2 hours of just grammar, then 2 hours of just reading. Interleaving means mixing different skills within one study session.
Why is that better?
Because it forces your brain to constantly switch gears, retrieving different types of information. It makes your brain more agile, better able to pull up the right skill or knowledge on demand, which is exactly what happens in a real conversation.
So what would an interleave C1 session look like?
Maybe 90 minutes total. You could do, say, 20 minutes of deep listening and shadowing. Then immediately switch to 20 minutes of blurting method recall on something you read yesterday.
Okay.
Then maybe 20 minutes writing an email, actively trying to use some new lexical chunks. Then switch again 20 minutes using the Feynman technique on a tricky grammar point. And finish with 10 minutes reviewing your active recall questions.
Wow, okay. Constant switching. Feels more dynamic.
It is. It strengthens retrieval across different domains, making your skills more flexible and accessible under pressure.
All right, interleaving. What's the second concept for making it stick?
This one's more of a mindset shift. Embracing discomfort.
Uh-oh. Sounds uncomfortable.
It is. But here's the thing. If your English practice always feels easy, you're probably not rewiring effectively. You're likely just cruising in your comfort zone.
So that feeling of strain, struggling for a word, feeling slow when trying a new structure, that's actually good.
That's not just good. That is the feeling of growth.
Yeah.
That's your brain building connections. That's myelin being laid down. That's the superhighway construction zone.
Yeah.
You have to feel that friction.
So we need to reframe that feeling. Not I'm failing, but okay, my brain is working hard right now.
Exactly. Associate cognitive friction with a successful workout. Actively seek out that edge of your ability. Push into the discomfort. That's where the real change happens at the C1 plus level.
Wow, okay. That's a really different way to think about practice. So wrapping this all up then.
Yeah, I mean, this journey from C1 competence to C2 mastery to real fluency, it's the final, most rewarding stage, really.
And it's fundamentally an inward journey, isn't it, into how our own minds work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the key takeaway is that fluency isn't magic. It's physiology. It's a physical change in your brain that you can direct. You're not just a learner, you're the architect.
A neurohacker, I like that.
You have the power. Every deep practice session lays a pathway. Every forced recall strengthens a connection. Every link to emotion and context weaves English into who you are. Every good night's sleep solidifies it.
But it takes work, dedication, intensity.
And that crucial mindset shift, embracing the difficulty, trusting your brain's amazing plasticity, taking deliberate control.
The path is clear, the tools are there.
Now go build your English brain.